move your chairs around and move around this way too. If you can't see the board, there'll probably be a problem. Okay, so this is how I want to start. I'm just going to ask a really simple question, and I want you to rapid fire as many ideas as you can. My question is this: what is required for a business? Very simple, kind of vague question, but
Capital.
what do you need for a business?
An idea.
Product, revenue.
Customers.
License. Market.
Team.
Grit,
Keep going.
revenue.
Sales skills.
Focus. Persist.
Passion.
Know-how solution. Are you just showing off that you can reach that high?
I am. Anything else? Do we have everything we need?
You need strategy.
Okay.
Leadership.
Vision.
Communication skills.
Demand.
Do we feel comfortable yet?
You have a mind, but no demand.
Good. Okay, so I've deliberately thrown you down a bit of a rabbit hole, because that's a lot of things. I contend that there is only one thing you need to have a business, and that is a paying customer. Now, you can have all these other things, but if somebody's not paying you, you do not have a business. And so here's the trick. Just because you have a paying customer doesn't mean you have a good business. And so, here's the challenge that you all face as early stage entrepreneurs. You do not control resources. You have very little resources. In many cases, you don't have revenue yet, so you don't have this paying customer yet. An entrepreneur needs to be super, super hyper focused. And so John took the words right out of my mouth. A broad strategy is a nightmare and a terrible thing. And a very focused, specific one can save the day. And so what I want to talk about today is a very specific part of go-to-market, and it's this idea of the beachhead market. Does anybody have any idea what I mean by a beachhead market? Does that mean anything to anybody?
It means something to me because I went to Entrepreneur Showcase.
Good. So, how about just the phrase beachhead? Does anybody know where that came from? Like, does anybody think of anything? Okay, tell me about that.
You're focusing on taking that position.
Give me more detail.
Well, like during World War II, I mean, they when they went into Europe, I mean, they focused on an area and they took it.
That's right. So D-Day is like the quintessential example of what a beachhead is. You know, you send all your troops to go on the boat, and they storm the beach, and that was where the reconquest of Europe took place.
Right.
You know, they liberated Europe. The Allied troops liberated Europe from a 10-mile stretch of beach on the Normandy coast. It's where you start, and you have to start somewhere. So, okay, second question. Knowing that this is the direction we're going to go, and understanding that, just imagine your own version of Normandy, only with your customers. Maybe that's a little disrespectful. I don't mean to be disrespectful. So, a target customer. This is what I want to talk about second. How would you guys define your business's target customer in a general sense? I don't want to know who your target customer is, but if I asked you what does a target customer mean, what would you say to me?
What'd you say?
The person whose problem you're solving?
Oh,
I want to go back to what you said with paying customers, so the emphasis will be paying, so someone willing to buy the product. Or willing to buy. Not willing, I'm focusing on the money.
Someone who has a pain that will be relieved by your solution.
Okay, so let me take these definitions and let's use specify. Who might have a pain that your solution could solve?
In the restaurant owners?
Okay, that's one example. Who else?
The restaurant customers?
So we got the restaurants, more broadly.
Anyone who actually is not able to, anyone who is not able to understand the concept of marketing, how it works.
So there's like a million industries then.
Yeah.
So this is the problem with these definitions.
Mm.
That's not a target customer. It's too big. Bizify is a great example of a solution that could solve a lot of people's problems. So I'm going to read this definition for you. I wrote this down from a mentor of mine. So forgive me for reading notes. I know that's frowned upon here. But so here's a target customer. It's a group of potential customers who share many characteristics and, most importantly, who would all have similar reasons to buy a particular product. So I had another great mentor, a man by the name of Clayton Christensen. He wrote Disruptive Innovation, Innovator's Solution, Innovator's Dilemma, and he had this theory called jobs to be done, the jobs to be done theory. And the basic premise was people have problems in their lives. You've articulated that they hire products or individuals to solve. And they get very nitty-gritty. So he shared this great story with me about a consulting project he once worked on. He got hired by a restaurant, and they had this problem, and that was their milkshake sales were flat. Try as they might, they couldn't sell any more milkshakes, and they added flavors, they added toppings, they had this beautiful marketing campaign. Everything they did, nothing changed. The customers or the milkshake sales remained flat. And so my mentor, this Clayton Christensen fellow, that's what he did. He went to the restaurant, sat in every day, all day for like a week and a half. And he interviewed customers as they bought the milkshake. And he discovered something really, really interesting. And that was that, if I draw this little timeline of a day, and this is the morning, and this is the evening, there was this unexpected peak in milkshake sales early in the morning, and then again, kind of mid-afternoon. And it's, begs the question, well, why are we selling a bunch of milkshakes at like 7 a.m. and again at like 3 p.m.? And what he learned was there was a very specific reason that people were buying milkshakes, and it wasn't because of sprinkles, and it wasn't because of beautiful marketing campaigns, but instead, the customers at 7 a.m. were the folks coming in right before a long commute, and they needed something to help get them through the commute. They tried a banana, and I ate my banana, and it was gone in 30 seconds, and I still had an hour left in my drive. I tried oatmeal, and anyone who's ever driven and eaten oatmeal at the same time knows that that's been a disaster. They tried nothing at all. I'm still bored. I need something to solve this problem in my life. I need to get through the commute. I'm hungry. And milkshakes were their solution. It was kind of my breakfast, but also something to do to get me through an hour-long commute. And then at 3 p.m. you learned the customers were radically different. This was the soccer mom who picked her children up from school and had been feeling guilty for saying no to every request this young child made all day long, all week long. It was like, you know what? There's this one nice thing I can do. I can buy my child a milkshake. We'll make it quick. It's relatively painless. The reason this is important is because we learned why. Why a customer was hiring a product or service in their life. And so you can iterate and build your business around that problem. And this one was really simple. So to make a better milkshake for the commute, the restaurant thickened up the milkshake. And to make a milkshake that better served the parents buy the milkshake for their kids, they made it thinner so that the kids ate it really fast and they could get home. And sales took off because it better solved the problem. And very specifically to this quote, they identified customers that had similar reasons to buy a particular product.
It's like solving two problems though.
It's two different customers.
Two
It's
different types of
different
customers,
products.
two different scenarios, two different desires for the same product.
That's right. That's right. So the point being though that you can nail it, if you can drill and understand. So this is the idea of this jobs to be done theory, understanding your target customer. So now I want to dive back into this beachhead. So let me ask kind of a few more questions. I want to pick, well, how about the three who pitched today? I want you to define for me, based on your business, what a beachhead customer or industry market might look like. And I want you to know that we'll probably beat you up a little bit, so don't feel bad about it. But like, define well, let's start with this. You said restaurants. That's a beachhead market. Is that how you would pick?
Yes, yes.
Okay. What about the others?
Well, mine was a small business market, but, you know, it could be heavy construction, restaurants, retail.
Okay. And then the last one.
Mine would be first time buyers, people who want to buy a home.
Okay. Let me tell you a story, and then let's come back to this. So, there's a company, it was called Smart Skincare. So I gotta read a couple notes here because this is a science and technology I'm gonna admittedly, or I'll admit to you that I didn't fully understand. But the gist was, they had invented a technology that could, quote, quickly synthesize nanoparticles for medical uses. So I didn't know what that meant. So I read a little bit more, and they said, you know, they had developed a nanoscale polymer coating that binds the skin and slowly releases medication. And the gist was you could kind of put something on your skin, rub it on, and over time it could release a medicine into your body. So bear with me here, maybe not all scientists. Imagine if you could slowly release a medicine into somebody's immune system, what markets might that address? Again, you don't need to be a science expert. Your hypothesis might be totally wrong scientifically speaking, but just brainstorm with me.
Sick people, like somebody's suffering from
Pain.
Pain.
Okay. Pain relief?
Diabetics,
Chronic disease.
What's that hint?
No.
Oh.
Sorry, what?
I was thinking chronic disease.
Chronic, okay.
Athletes,
Athletes?
yeah.
Its application is on the skincare product also. I mean, it's basically if you slowly release, it can last long, whatever.
Or exactly. Okay, so let me illustrate what this skincare company did and how they narrowed their beachhead market. So, how would you pick which market to go after?
research them.
I guess
I studied competition for
the lowest hanging fruit, which is the easiest market to penetrate.
Who's hurting the most?
It's a maximum money from where you can get. It looks like skincare.
Cool.
I look
So,
at who is the most neglected. Yeah.
okay, so those are all radically different approaches. How would you pick one? It's a tricky question. So this is what they did. To your point, a lot of research. They thought about medical applications they could use the technology for, hospitals that could use it, outpatient services, cancer treatment. None of them made a lot of sense for various reasons. So let me tell you the market they did pick that maybe will help illustrate why a market did make sense. So this is a medical service. They went after, I'm out of space, the sunscreen market. And they went after sunscreen for a very specific reason. One, it's not regulated like the others are. So they can get in really, really quick. So few resources required. It's not regulated, they could go direct to customers and get real customer feedback. You know, if you are working with cancer patients, that's maybe a little harder. And it was quick. So here's the trick. The sunscreen market is not specific enough. So then they went and they dove down even further, and they went after high performance athletes. Somebody said athletes. Specifically triathletes who were middle-aged.
So already feeling the soreness.
So here's the trick. So middle-aged, if you ask me, that's actually not a good reason to go after somebody, but because of their age, they had common buying characteristics. So sunscreen had all these benefits that we mentioned, didn't require a lot of resources. You could go to market quickly. It was relatively cheap. High-performance athletes are even more demanding of their products, but also more likely to purchase products of this sort, you know, as opposed to, you know, if I'm getting sunscreen for my kid in the pool, I just grab the generic brand off the shelf and go. And this middle-aged piece, what that really meant was folks with disposable income. So I could go after the high-performance athletes that are like 22 years old, but they don't have any money. Okay, so if we've got a technology application that's a high science medical application that could be applied in a million industries, but their beachhead market was sunscreen for middle-aged, high-performance athletes, triathletes. What does that tell us about our beachhead markets right here?
We're way off base.
We're not specific enough. And why is it so important that we get really, really specific?
Yeah. We have to have our first customer, that's where you want to be more specific, not to waste time around that time.
Okay, why is it so bad if you waste time at the stage of your company?
Because resources are valuable.
John, what did it cost you every month if you wasted time?
Couple bucks. A couple years off my life.
You're writing checks for these things.
Isn't there also like a layer of, I won't be able to say, scalability, if that's a word?
Credibility?
No.
Scalability.
Being able to scale the, you know, the revenue and the product market.
Or
What I mean is the more specific you are, the easier it should be to scale.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you're very specific, then your sales force can go out and make the exact same pitch with the high degree of confidence that that's relevant to the next customer they go after. So totally scalable. And it allows you to be deliberate and disciplined in going after your adjacent markets as you begin to grow. So, you know, I don't know what this company ended up doing, but going from the high performance sunscreen product, it would be relatively simple to then get into, you know, either high performance for those folks with a little less income or more generic sunscreen for all sorts of folks. And then in time, then you're resourced, then you're making money, and if heaven forbid you're profitable, then you got a heck of a lot more leverage when you're negotiating with those PE and VC vultures that want your business. It is way better to go pitch to an investor when you've got, say, 4 other investors that are chasing you as well, and you're making money. Then you have all the negotiation leverage. So this is the way to go because it gets resources in the door.
So what I'm gathering, what you're saying is that you've got to be looking at the adjacent, affected, or most closely related markets that can give you a microscopic view of another customer.
Yeah, so I think that's
You know
a fair
what I
way to put it.
I know it sounds long-winded, but that's how I'm processing it, what you're saying.
Yeah, so let me be clear. This kind of hyper-focus will never make you a billion-dollar company.
Mhm.
What I'm saying is if you don't do this first, you're probably gonna die before you ever become a billion-dollar company.
Mhm.
So to John's point, he's got his 4 markets that he's going after over and over and over again. And in time, as an investor in Pondera Solutions, I hope, maybe we can go after some of those other hundreds and thousands of markets. But not until you're ready,
Right.
not until the goal here is to dominate a niche market. That's, there's this thing called it's called the China syndrome. And the idea is, well, the story is that, you know what? If I could just go after this market in China and get 0.5% of the market, then I'd be a millionaire. The reality is you can't do it. It doesn't happen. It doesn't work that way. You get torn apart and ripped to shreds. You want to dominate niche markets and then deliberately expand into adjacent markets in a very thoughtful, deliberate way. So let's spend a little bit of time with Bizify's restaurant idea. How can we make this a more specific beachhead market so that it's useful for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking that if I go to these restaurants, they will right away, I should be able to sell the solution right away to them, which is restaurants who have at least an annual revenue of between 200K to 500K. Because they don't have any dedicated marketing resources to them, but they still are exploring all those areas and are suffering every day because they are getting out-marketed by the other folks.
Okay, so big enough to have money, small enough to not have a corporate team that's doing this themselves. Okay. How about some more ideas for Bizify? A medium-sized enterprise is not, a medium-sized restaurant is not specific enough.
Maybe they're using a certain type of point of sale system. Something about the way they process, orders. You go to some restaurants now, you still have some people that are still writing down your orders, and you have some that are going into, using tablets and things like that. That might have something, the way that they are using technology automation to communicate with their customer and the orders and their wants and needs of the order may have something to do with how they transfer their technology and marketing.
Okay, so if someone's got their little iPad ordering system, maybe that's a signal that they're more likely to adopt technology.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll bounce back from what Alexis said and say online presence. Some restaurants don't have an online presence, but I think Bizify will want to target those who.
Yeah, these days
What about
everybody has online.
What about who their customer is? I mean, I guarantee the Maple's Pie Shop doesn't think they compete with some hip restaurant downtown, right?
Yeah. I mean, and their competitors, like, yeah, so, first of all, going back to her, I was thinking still, I think the point is great, the ones who have certain kind of POS, because the chances are that they have all that data readily available with which they can go to market right away, versus the other folks who actually will have to build the base. So basically that's definitely one of the things. Another is like these days everybody has online presence, but how strong is their social profile is. Like if they have few hundred followers, or they have like Instagram, and how active those are. So those are the kind of folks who actually understand the strength of marketing and will be ready to jump in to make it more effective.
What else?
The decision maker, the one that's gonna write the check, whether it's the owner or the general manager, right? So you're the one that's pitching them, right?
So owner operated?
The restaurant is a restaurant, but the main person is gonna write the check, is that the one?
I think that some of the points we just raised go into the size of the restaurant in terms of how much they make annually. Because if they already make a certain amount, I would assume that the POS and all some of the other points will naturally be included.
Okay. So let's get beyond the size of the restaurant. We dove deep into that one. What other characteristics might be a nice
I'm still, trying to think about the customer, side, like, okay, what customers are gonna respond to certain channels? Like, you mentioned Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, what demographics are gonna, be on those various channels and how would they respond, or which ones are more likely to eat certain types of cuisine, so I don't know.
So the truck stop diner on middle of rural Nevada, maybe less value in a social media presence, marketing presence than some coffee shop in.
I don't know how many truckers are there, and are they having a hard time locating, I don't know.
Right.
Are they using
Well,
mobile?
so this is an important point.
Yeah.
Those are all questions you cannot answer by thinking about it.
Yeah, in fact, some of the truckers in San Francisco are very, very media savvy. They run their business only off of the Instagram. So I think that the thing is like how social
Maybe that's
media
your
savvy
market.
they are.
Right. So, thank you, John.
Right? I mean,
Okay, so we
maybe
just
do
defined
some
your
trucker
market.
restaurants.
It's the truck stops in San Francisco.
I love it. Go dominate that market. Right?
And then where could you go from there?
Yeah.
There's a lot of restaurants in San Francisco. There's a lot of different places you could go. So this is the point. Restaurants, not specific enough. Not to start with. Someday, you will dominate all restaurants, social, marketing profiles. But tomorrow, we're going to go dominate trucker stops in San Francisco.
And food trucks as a sideline too, I think
Sure. I mean,
would fall into that.
so you can go in all your directions here. And so the point is, get more specific than you ever thought was humanly possible. So specific that it is painful. Be deliberate in your thoughtfulness as you decide which of those industries to go after. And then pick one and do it. So I wrote
Can I
down,
interrupt and ask a question?
please.
Do you see why this would be so valuable?
And of course, I mean,
Because you're limited in your market, but think about when you go to this next truck stop restaurant, you think, man, this is all I do. All these guys are gonna come in and talk about all this other stuff. They work with a billion different types of businesses. So all I do, I'm the best in the world at truck stop, whatever it is. And then you're gonna win that one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and then you can get bigger. But you gotta get started.
That's
I
right.
like it, it's good.
Start small and expand.
That's right.
yeah, this
So,
is,
a couple of points about how to choose your beachhead. So, the most important point is that it is not important that you pick the best market. Rather, get started doing. Like, you'll never learn through independent thought what you can learn by just getting your hands dirty and getting in the market. Nothing will produce real data like action will. Another important point to understand is this first market you go after will be a painful but super valuable learning experience. I love John's story about going after Iowa first. Learned a ton. It was also a safe place to get your bumps and bruises. So think about that as well. It's better off learning in a smaller market where you can quickly get high visibility than a larger one where you might get run over and find it difficult to recover. I want to go over one last little bit of points, but this took me a little longer than I expected, so I'm going to fly through it. But it's kind of an approach to help you think about what beachhead market is real for you and a tool to get started there. Because the best way I know to choose a beachhead market is to get really big, think about everything that's out there, and then get small. So the 3 steps to kind of segmenting your market and getting to where you need to be. So step 1 is, it's this brainstorm idea that we're talking about. I want you to think about potential industries that your solution, your idea, your product might be useful for. And I want you to identify the tasks that your customer needs to accomplish. So I've got a solution. Where might it be relevant in the whole wide world? Bizify in restaurants, but also in 30 other industries. And then on the other end, what is that customer, like what do they have to actually do to, what are they doing that this tool might be useful? So you brainstorm, you got really wide, then you narrow it down. And again, this mentor of mine had 7 key questions. I'm gonna read them to you really fast. You're probably not gonna catch them all. I'll make sure I get them to you afterwards. But I just want these at least planted in your head. So 1 is your target customer, well defined. Is the target customer readily accessible to your sales force? Does that target customer have a compelling reason to buy what you're selling? Can you deliver today a whole product to solve that customer's problem? Is there entrenched competition that might block you from entering the market? And if you win that market, can you leverage it to additional adjacent markets? And then lastly, and maybe most importantly, is this market consistent with your own values, passions, and goals? For example, at Impact Venture Capital, we have noted with interest that the marijuana industry is taking off in the state of California, but we have no interest in getting involved in the cannabis industry for our own personal values.
Well, you're involved right now because we're finding fraud. It's true. City of Los Angeles hired us for that.
Awesome.
It's impossible
The other
to
side
not
of
be
it.
involved in some way.
Right. So point is, and again, no judgment on anybody else's values and interests, but just doesn't align with our goals, passions. So just know that about yourself. And then step 3 is your primary market research. And this, the most important thing I can say here is that if an industry report exists about the market you're going after and how you're going to do it, you're probably too late. So that's why the word primary is so important. You're going out and you're bugging customers, and if I understand Mariah correctly, she's probably got you doing that a million times over already. You can only learn by getting out in front of your customers. You need to learn what their real pain points are. You need to learn what they're willing to pay you for. You need to learn how they make their buying decisions. You're creating markets. Most entrepreneurs we'll work with and see that will be wildly successful are creating markets that didn't really exist before. It's not to say the industry didn't exist, but they're doing something radically different. So again, to John's point, IBM's got their hardware, software world. They're building a business model where the entrenched incumbents won't go there. That's how disruptive innovation works. Occasionally we'll see a technology that is so radical that it's impossible to duplicate and replicate. Most often we will see a business model where the entrenched incumbent just doesn't want to respond. Blockbuster versus Netflix, Yahoo versus Google, Walmart versus Amazon. The incumbent's business model wouldn't let them do it. We just don't want you to run out of runway by boiling the ocean instead of getting very specific with your beachhead market. Anyway, so that's what I got. Forgive me for throwing my notes and scattering all over the place and writing on a whiteboard in ways that probably wouldn't make sense.
It's 100% permissible.
Good. So I hope that was in some way helpful. But you guys, you're the ones who dispense advice from on high and do with it what you will.
If I may, so it's a question for both you and John, because we talked tonight about testing the market, and the Iowa example was really interesting, but I'm wondering how you act on that or implement it when your product is, let's say, an application that is going to be used across, states. What I mean by that is that it's not necessarily attached to one specific